15-36 overall record in his role as GM. 3-15 inside the NFC North. 4-21 on the road. 4-20 against teams that qualified for the playoffs. Marshall Harris, does that scream contract extension?
You already know the answer. It's a rhetorical question. And no, it does not scream contract extension. I guess it's what have you done for me lately? Last I checked, he's 1-0 against the division in his last game played.
Yeah,
That's all I got.
That's how I feel.
But,
he's 15
and he had a hell of an
36.
offseason. And they won the offseason for the second consecutive year.
God,
And it's 4 with a 5th for Caleb Williams.
Right.
So that means it would be a year after that contract runs out if you take the 5th.
They have control of him for the next 4 years.
If you take the 5th.
So they could let that all go, and if something goes bad with Caleb Williams, they could just go out and get another quarterback.
Well, and they would know after 3 more seasons whether they want to give him the extension or not, or let him go like they did Justin Fields.
Right.
You wonder how much of this has to do with how Ben Johnson feels about Ryan Poles.
100%.
Right?
That's where this is.
Yeah, because, last year was so much all about Caleb Williams, how much they doted on Caleb Williams. Now you feel like the decision maker, or the one that we will focus on, and the one that may surpass Caleb Williams if he isn't great under center, is a guy named Ben Johnson. It feels like everything is running through Ben Johnson. So does this decision have to do with perhaps making Ben Johnson feel more comfortable about the future of Ryan Poles? But I think about the messaging of it too. Like what sort of message does that sound with the amount of 10-game losing streaks Ryan Poles has been able to oversee? What sort of messaging does that sound to the importance of showing up, doing your job, and doing it well? I mean, some semblance of being a cutthroat organization. This decision for Ryan Poles has nothing to do with that.
No, it speaks of comfort. And that's been my issue with this. I said it before, and people got really angry on social media. At the end of the day, the GM has not proven to be correct in process yet. I'm not saying that what he did hiring Ben Johnson was bad. I'm saying there are 2 10-game losing streaks. You're 15-36 as a general manager. Your 1-1 just had a catastrophic season when it came to the expectations. And like we said, you lost the locker room. You had to fire a head coach in the middle of the season for the first time in team history. You've got 3 years of draft classes where we've already seen some major slip-ups. So unfortunately, by that metric, no. Did I think that he was worthy of a contract extension? No. Did I want to see him prove that he could be and then we talk about it? Yes. But this is comfort. This is comfort for Ben Johnson. That's what I'm assuming this comes down to.
And for the organization and for Kevin Warren.
Well, you guys are talking about the messaging. The messaging to me is very clear on this. A team that refuses to tell you how long people are under contract, all of a sudden is telling all the national insiders how long people are under contract. They're making a statement like, okay, we're ready for our coming out party now. They haven't done anything yet on the field, but they're ready to state, like, here's how confident we are at this stage of where we are and kind of changing the way things are done. As you mentioned, Leila, first time in team history, they would fire a head coach in the middle of the season. Now they're telling you, by the way, here's our GM, here's our quarterback, here's our head coach, here are the links of their contracts. You now know the entire spread of what's going on.
And who's the point person behind all this? It's Kevin Warren.
Oh, it's Kevin Warren.
All right, there's a new sheriff in town that's literally taken over the organization. It's not George anymore. It's not Ted Phillips, who's long gone. It's Kevin Warren who's making all the decisions. And you know what? To follow up on what you said, Leila, if Kevin Warren is comfortable with Ryan Poles as his GM, then that signified what happened today. And that is, hey, the guy got a new deal and he's in comfort. Now you're right. Everyone's relaxed. Everyone's on the same page. Ben Johnson specifically, I'm sure that there were conversations with the head coach that were, hey, do you feel like you are in sync with this GM? And if yes, then we're going to put you guys on the same type of contract.
And maybe it also says how much the Bears are willing to spend in sunk cost if something goes wrong as well. Like, you're right about the messaging. We've never had terms like this. Also, I think it was a pretty common groupthink, even when Kevin Warren said a year is a lifetime. We all thought that maybe Ryan Poles was under contract for another year, not 2. That said 2 remaining, did it not? I think that's an important piece of this as well.
He just signed it to 5 lifetimes.
Yeah.
That's a good, comfortable place to be. And the thing about Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson, right, because if Ben Johnson is great, and I think he's got a really. I'm a big believer in Ben.
He's
Johnson.
a great offensive coordinator.
Yes, he is.
We don't know
play
what
caller.
kind of
Right.
great play caller. We don't know if he'll be a great head coach.
Right, but from what I've seen, and when I see the man stand at the podium, I'll tell you this: I feel exactly the opposite that I felt about Matt Eberflus for a man to be able to lead a room, and I feel confident about Caleb Williams as well. But Ryan Poles did not pull off this magical thing to land Ben Johnson. Remember, Ben Johnson's first interview said in his opening statement, I want to be the head coach of the Bears. And then before he ended that first interview, he said, I want to be the head coach of the Bears. They just showed up for the money to give him. So, this contract in itself, I still look at what Ryan Poles has done, virtually nothing to do to earn this contract. Ben Johnson, I think, is going to have to be the one to salvage it and make it look like a good decision.
He made a big deal.
agree.
The big deal with Carolina comes into play here because when you look at what he actually has drafted on his own, there's what are you looking at as your crown jewel? The crown jewel of his tenure here is making the trade for Caleb Williams, and we don't know yet how good Caleb Williams can be.
No, we just talked about a top 25 list of two respected names in football evaluation, and neither one had them on there, but they had the other quarterback who got drafted next on there, and Jaden Daniels.
And high in the top 5 for both of them.
Who went to the playoffs, and then C.J. Stroud, who was prior, of course, to Caleb Williams.
Who they could have had if they hadn't traded that pick away to Carolina.
There
And
have been
it's
as
just-
many misses as hits for Ryan Poles.
I would say
other
more.
than the trade. Other than the trade.
But think about even the people we want to come online who he's drafted. You appropriately cut Velus Jones, which you should have done. Kyler Gordon is your one guy who got signed to an extension.
His first pick, by the way.
Right. So that's one. You haven't drafted somebody who's made a Pro Bowl.
No, the first thing that Ben Johnson had to do was show up here and go in and buy an interior offensive line. The interesting thing about Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, none of those guys were first-round picks. All those guys went after the first round. So Ben Johnson came in, really had to correct what has unfolded throughout the draft and go and spend money. That's 5, 6, and 7 on their payroll as of now to go and buy an offensive line because they haven't been able to draft one.
Do you
Well,
think
they-
that Ben Johnson needed to buy in to what Ryan Poles was doing here before he accepted that job? I know that you said a minute ago that, what he said in his press conference, that he wanted to be the head coach of the Bears.
Yeah.
How much of that was because he felt like he could work with Ryan Poles, who had conversations with him before he got hired? Let's be honest here.
I felt like it had more to do with how much he thought he could work with the quarterback.
And not the general manager?
Not necessarily. I think when you are an offensive coordinator by trade, you call the plays, unlike the previous OC who got brought here. I think the quarterback is the difference maker. When you consider the other teams that we talked about, just take the Raiders, for example. Pete Carroll goes in there, he gets Geno Smith. That's the difference. I feel like the quarterback and the roster and the youth of it was more enticing to Ben Johnson than anywhere else.
Also, if you're just now joining us here on 670 Score, this is transition. We got a potpourri of people in here. It's Leila Rahimi, Marshall Harris, Judson Richards, Luke Canellis. We're talking about this just announced deal that the Bears have made to extend Ryan Poles. He's now under tabs, under contract for the next 5 years through the 2029 season. That matches what Ben Johnson signed as a contract as the head coach. So they're now mirroring each other. Meanwhile, Caleb Williams, he, of course, has a 4-year deal with a 5th-year team option, and he's going into year 2 this year. And this is fascinating on a Friday in the middle of
It's
July.
Friday news dump.
Is it really
It's
news
not
dump?
a news dump, though, because...
No.
Well,
it's-
just from a time standpoint.
Well, it's
2
after
o'clock
this
on a
Friday,
Friday.
we're getting ready for
5
training camp.
If this happened at 5 o'clock, okay, but it's still middle of the
It's
day.
3 o'clock Eastern time, Marshall.
Okay, that's
It's pretty
fair.
dumpish.
But here in Chicago,
Well, I
we're
mean-
going to be talking about this for the next...
Oh, yeah. I mean, Lou and I just put together an incredible show. We just went over for an hour.
That has been thrown in the
blow it up,
can
blow
because we're going to
it
talk
up.
about the Bears now.
I mean, if you just take away everything except, say, the record and what you know about the team,
Everything that you've
the
seen.
15 and 36 general manager just got signed to a
Yeah.
contract extension, you might be raising an eyebrow.
But what's the
But the
alternative?
context matters here.
Layla, what's the alternative? All right, let's say, I asked this question, and I want you guys, all of you, to jump in. Let's say that they had 2 bad years to open up under Ben Johnson. What happens then? You fire a GM, and now you're bringing in a new GM with a head coach that you hired 3 years ago?
Well, that's
Or do
always
you give the
always
chance-
been the issue.
Exactly. So I think the move actually is a smart move by the organization, no matter what he had done previously and what that record that I stated is, I think that the move has been made, and part of what you said is correct. Listen, they're prepared to dump any contract if they have to get this organization back on its right foot.
They had to align at some point. You know, there was no doubt about that. They talked famously about how they did everything out of order. You know, and in the NFL, and the Lions are a good example, align your general manager and your head coach and your quarterback. That is the easiest way to set yourself up for success in the NFL. That's established. In this case, you had aligned your general manager and your head coach, but not your quarterback until they got Caleb Williams. At some point, they had to sync up those timelines. So I understand that piece of it. But on its face, I didn't feel comfortable, if I'm the one writing the check, with extending the GM yet who hasn't been totally proven. He hasn't been proven. I want him to prove me wrong. But your alternative in this case is probably inaction.
Hold on. Did he not prove to you this offseason that he made the right moves? I mean, we can all look back.
The season dictates whether or not he made the right moves in the offseason.
But really, is it fair to him if in December, is there anyone out there that said this team made the wrong move by going out and signing Drew Dahlman at center as a free agent?
No.
There's not one person out there that can argue against that move.
And you could start from the top on down, going to get Ben Johnson and then getting that coaching staff and then going to make the decisions to build around the offense for the guy who's going to be calling plays. That's the reason why he was hired. Let's make no mistake about it. Ben Johnson was the number one coaching target on the market because of what he has done as an offensive play caller. That is it. And if you go get a guy like that, you've also got to get whatever tools he needs to make sure that he brings the number one offense to your building. So I see all of that. I also understand Leila's point about Ryan Poles doesn't necessarily merit a contract extension by what he's been able to do so far. It's this simple to me. Kevin Warren has said, Ryan, you're going to get another chance. Go do it again. This is not unlike what the Bulls have done with Arturas Karnisovas and Mark Eversley. You're going to get another chance. Go do it again. Now, we don't have to like it. We don't have to agree with it. The problem is we're going to sit here and talk about it as it plays out on the field, on the court, whatever sport you want to say we're talking about.
I'm just wondering when Ryan Poles is going to be expected to win games.
Oh, it's this season.
Year.
It's this season.
Oh, this year.
That's
this
my
year
point
heading
of this.
into just landing a 5-year extension.
Well, he's put the pieces in place this year. I mean, this team needs to win 8 games minimally.
But doesn't that feel backwards, Lou, to put the pieces in place to get a contract before that?
Yeah, 100% it does. And as Leila has mentioned, do the numbers prove that he deserves what he received today? No. Okay. Has he been given another chance by Kevin Warren because they are on the same page? Yes. So we're starting new with a new head coach, a quarterback who's going into his second year, who I felt played much better last year than many feel are willing to give him credit for, despite what he went through, all that coaching malpractice, all right, and getting sacked 68 times. It's a fresh start, and you know what? Fresh start, you get 5 years, Ben Johnson, you get 5 years, Ryan Poles, and it starts now, and if it doesn't work out, then we'll make changes.
Well,